Sometimes it other things in our heads and hearts and in her basket. We trust it all to your care and keeping. Pray this in Christ's name. Amen. When John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, first saw Jesus appearing along the Jordan River, he had followers who were following him, but he said to his followers, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world." He knew it was time for them to take their focus off of him and focus onto the true Lamb of God, the Son of God. And then on the day that Christ died, there was a centurion standing near the cross, and it says in Mark 15, when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was God's Son." So what does it mean to you to have before you a cross as a symbol of Christ's death for us? What does it mean to you to look at and focus on the Lamb of God. What would it mean, or what does it mean in your life to say truly he was the Son of God? With me being a S personality type and always wanting to know how things are happening, how things are done, I often try to look at those theories of atonement, and then I get lost in my head and lose sight of the experience. And so what I'd like to share with you this morning is just three kind of primary thoughts that came to mind for me as to what this means for me, as a way to invite you to think about what that might mean for you. We'll end this devotion time then with the singing together of the hymn Beneath the Cross of Jesus, if you feel safe and feel comfortable singing and joining in that singing as a way to invite you into that time of reflection. And then we'll just end with a time of just personal reflection, give you another maybe 30 seconds or a minute to reflect on what that might mean for you. And then I will close with closing blessing. So three thoughts that really focus for me. First of all, when I think about a Good Friday service, I often go back to probably what was the most meaningful Good Friday service I've ever been a part of. I don't know if you're familiar with Ray Boltz and the song Watch the Lamb. It became popular the year I moved to one of the churches out in Hartford, South Dakota, and the church sanctuary had kind of a stage to it. It had a side entrance, and so we planned to do a reenactment of Watch the Lamb. I ended up being Joseph, Arimathea. My two youngest daughters, the two children, had carried in the live lamb that ran away in the midst of the song. One of the youth symbolized the Christ who was crucified on the cross. I was standing before the cross, standing there in the darkness with the spotlight on the crucified Christ. And my two young children came up beside me and said, "Daddy, please forgive us. The lamb ran away." And I still get choked up when I think about it. And my turning to them and turning to invite them to face the cross and say, "Watch the Lamb." The Lamb who takes away the sins of the world. For me, that is the first key thought that comes to mind for me in another either Good Friday service that I've done at times, but also camp services that we've done at times where we've had a cross and kind of symbolize that time, where persons have an opportunity on slips of paper to write down either sins that come to mind for them or aspects of their sinful nature and write them down and nail them to the cross. It's within each one of us. If it wasn't, we wouldn't even need the cross. But for me, the first essential aspect of it is to recognize that all of my sin, all of my sinful nature, somehow, I don't know how, and there's lots of theories that describe how, but however it happens, it becomes an opportunity for taking away my sin, my goodness, my shame. The second key thought that came to mind for me is that the cross reminds me that Christ knows our pain and suffering, and even redeems it. In the midst of the deepest sorrow of my life, I remember going to a cemetery, and the only words that came to mind for me was, "He was acquainted with our grace. He knows our pain and suffering. He was despised and rejected." He's a God who suffers for us and with us. He's the God who cries first when we experience the death of a loved one and enter a time of grief. He knows what it's like to struggle with our addictions, or our anger, or our resentment, our fears, our pain. And I thought of all of the grief and loss that we've gone through as an organization this year, and thinking about the session that Dr. Yuki and I had a privilege of putting together for a couple of our locations, and focusing on the grief and loss that they've experienced, the compassion fatigue that we go through, the survivor guilt that becomes a part of our lives. And Yet there's an awareness that somehow, in knowing Christ died and suffered for us and is able to redeem it, and even through death give new life, that there is hope for us through the power of the cross, because he knows and understands and redeems our pain and suffering. And then the third one that comes to mind for me, which probably became more real when I had my own daughters, is how could anyone give their own son? As one who personally, because of the personality type I am, struggle with knowing that I'm loved, even though people can tell me they love me, it's somehow hard to receive it internally. The cross reminds me of God's deep sacrificial love. There would be nothing that would separate me or us from his love. I don't know what it means to you or what we'll say to you this day, but I would invite us to sing together the hymn Beneath the Cross of Jesus. Let it be a time of reflecting on what this cross, the Lamb of God, might mean to you. And then I will give you a moment to silently reflect before closing blessing. Would you sing together with me?